All right. All right, we should be going. All right, so welcome to our December 2020, almost to 2021. A look ahead. This is our volunteer leadership development series. Tonight we're going to talk about safety plans. We're going to talk about a couple virtual meeting resources that I have learned about in the past month and a half or so that I just want to share. And then also we're going to take a look at what 2021 is going to be bringing, at least January, February timeframe for right now. Before we really get going, I want to remind everyone the mission of Indiana 4-H, which is to provide real-life educational opportunities that develop young people who will have a positive impact in their communities and their world. I think it's really important that we remember this at every single one of our meetings, just so we can keep that mindset as we have conversations and as we talk about upcoming changes that we might have to be facing and what the 4-H program is going to be looking like in this coming year. So tonight we're going to review our current meeting options, take a look at what is available to our 4-Hers and to our volunteers that want to have meetings or workshops. I am going to use the term meetings, thinking as in club meetings, but that could also be project meetings, that could be workshops, that could be specialty program events that we might have. So I'm kind of using that in a broad term tonight, just to clarify. We are going to go over safety guidelines just as a review and a refresher. We are going to talk about some virtual meeting tips, tools, and techniques, like I said, and then just kind of go over what at least January, February might bring us for the 2021 program year. And then, of course, we'll always have time for questions and answers at the end. You don't have to hold your questions till then. If you want to type them in the chat box, like I said, or unmute yourself, feel free to as we go along. So first, we're going to talk about our current meeting options, and I am going to share a bunch of resources today. They will be available again after the fact, and I'll show you where as we go along. But right now we have 3 current options for meetings. We have our in-person option, we have a hybrid option, and we have our virtual option. So first, I don't want to focus on these a whole lot because we actually have a resource from Purdue. One of the sessions at the Indiana Leadership Summit talked all about these different meeting options. And I know that because I was one of the people that hosted that. So we have lots of resources that I will share with you related to these, but I wanted to touch on just some key points of the types of meetings we can have. So any in-person event has to follow our county COVID color coding system. It's really hard to say. So for example, if we are in red, that means no more than 25 people can be there, or whatever the governing rule is when that meeting is going to be happening. We do have to abide by all of our safety plan guidelines. The room, it must be set at a social distance, and it really needs to be returned that way, especially if you're utilizing our fairgrounds facilities. So we've had a couple people have meetings at the fairgrounds, and maybe they rearrange the room a little bit so families could sit by each other. That's perfectly fine. But we need to make sure we move it back to the way we had it set so that we know that it's set socially distanced for the next meeting as well. Face coverings are still required. I do want to note that depending on the meeting location, there may be a chance for people to take them off if they are seated and socially distanced. Because the fairgrounds is a county building, and county policy, to my knowledge right now, is that they still are required in the county building. If participants need a break, you could do things like allow them to go to the restroom. If it's nice outside, encourage them to go outside, step outside, and take that off if they need to get that chance to take that face covering off if we would like. And we still are using the term face coverings, but it can be a face mask, it can be a face shield, it can be one of the gator masks, but we are using the term face covering to kind of encompass all of those options. Any in-person meeting, it still is really encouraged that it is a hybrid meeting, which means that it has both an in-person option and that virtual component. So all the in-person stuff still needs to follow those guidelines, all the health and safety protocols. when it comes to the virtual component, you need to look for ways to make sure both virtual and the in-person kids can interact, whether that means having maybe a 4-H officer or a volunteer monitoring the virtual component, making sure if people are typing in the chat box, answering questions that way. That's a great opportunity for possible leadership development for a 4-H'er, or again, a volunteer. I do want to share, I'm going to go to this link next. The Engaging Youth Virtually Leadership Summit session talked a lot about this, and it goes into a lot more detail. So that is a resource I want to share with you guys. An example we have done with this is our base camp. So this past October, and I'm going to pull this up as we chat. This past October, we had our 4-H STEM challenge, and we were able to offer it both virtual and in person. So those that participated virtually were able to purchase a base camp kit and follow along with the activities that we would do in person as well. So again, this resource is going to be shared with you guys, but the Indiana 4-H Leadership Summit, there's a whole section on in-person meetings, hybrid meetings, and virtual meetings, what those look like. So again, I'm hoping you can still see my screen. It's all there. Like I said, we'll share. There's lots of other resources that we're going to go over as well. And then I'm going to do this. So then when it comes to, so those are the two options. Again, if it's in person, you really need to have it be hybrid. That means our last option is a virtual only option. And a lot of our larger clubs, our larger projects, especially if we're in the red, this is probably going to be the route you're going to have to take just for logistics standpoints. But make sure you're using a platform that you are comfortable with. Make sure you test your technology. Make sure you review virtual meeting etiquette with the kids. A lot of them are already experts because of having to do virtual learning, e-learning, but you can also be creative with the virtual component. So in a little bit, we are going to talk about some new virtual options and activities and tips and techniques that I have picked up over the last month and a half through some professional development opportunities I've had, just to share with you guys some ways to hopefully make your virtual meetings a little more engaging. Questions about that before we go to our second topic, which is safety plans. Super exciting stuff. Okay, if not, the next thing we're going to talk about is safety plans. And again, we have to have a safety plan for any in-person program that we're going to be doing. So you don't have to have a program or a safety plan if you're planning on doing totally virtual. If there is going to be a component where kids will be picking up a box, or you're going to have them stop by the office, while it's not totally in person, it's still a good idea to have that safety plan in place and just explain that. We did have a club that did a pickup because they were going to have a totally virtual meeting. And the kids, they invited the kids to do like a porch pickup at their house for the craft or the activity that they were doing that they were going to do that evening. And so they had to fill out a safety plan and just explain that that's how the kids were going to be picking it up. It was going to be a safe social distance. You know, there was really not going to be any interaction, but the fact that the kids were going to be doing something other than just at home watching the screen, we needed to have that safety plan in place. There are currently two options for our safety plans. We have an under 50 option, so less than 50 people, or more than 50 people. Right now, Hendricks County just went red on the COVID coding, meaning we can't have more than 25 people in a location for a meeting. So we would only be filling out that less than 50 safety plan. We have those available on our website. Ashley updated the volunteer section this afternoon. So those are there. They're also available. If you need them in a different format or something, just email us and let us know. When it comes to the safety plan, we need to make sure we're following that COVID coloring. So again, if we go back to orange, we will still be able to have no more than 50 people in one location. And Some things that I attended a professional development conference this Monday, Tuesday, and the director of extension spoke, and the things that you see on the screen are some of the major things that when he is looking through safety plans that he's going to look for. So those safety plans have to be turned in at least 3 weeks ahead of time so that we can get them up to Purdue and that they can get approved. Things like making sure you're describing how the room is going to be set up socially distanced. Steve Patterson at the fairgrounds and I have had several conversations, and they're just getting in the habit of setting rooms at a social distance. And like I said earlier, if you use the fairgrounds, please make sure you reset the room so that it's at a social distance again, so that all they have to do is come in and clean. Make sure that we are wearing the face coverings and those requirements are going to be met for the event wherever that is, and that we're following all of the county guidelines in regards to that. If you're going to be doing some sort of screening, so not necessarily saying you have to ask at a meeting, you know, have you been involved with someone that has had COVID or tested positive, but this can be something that's sent out ahead of time, and your youth or volunteers can be do a self-screening. In the templates that are provided to you, I've actually provided a sample email that we had used with the health department this past summer, and they're still aware that this is the kind of the template that we're using and the questions we're asking. So you guys will have access to that as well to send out to kids ahead of time. They're really looking for in the safety plan what communication is being shared. So how are you telling your 4-Hers what to expect? How are you going to be telling them how to social distance, what to do? Again, if we're at the fairgrounds specifically, we're lucky in the fact that we have a lot of signs already up in place, and we have a lot of stuff that's on the floor. So taping on the floor is something that's going to be there to separate 6 feet. So those kinds of things are going to be able to automatically be there compared to if you have your meeting somewhere else. Transportation, just as a reminder about what Purdue's guideline is, and that's something that if you would be transporting youth for some reason to a meeting, it needs to be no more than 50% occupancy and face coverings are required. Typically, if this is just a regular meeting, workshop, program, leaders, volunteers aren't really going to be transporting other kids. It's usually up to the 4-Hers to provide their own transportation or have a parent, guardian, family member drop them off. And then the big thing they're looking for going forward is going to be that all volunteers are going to be checking the ISDH website, so the state health department website, for whatever classification our county is currently going to be in, and make sure our plan reflects that as well. So when it comes to the fairgrounds, we've been in communication with the health department. They are aware that we have lots of meetings that take place at the fairgrounds. And right now the requirement is that if you are planning an event that is larger than the number they expect at meetings during that color coding. So for example, if you wanted to have 30 people at a meeting, but we're in the red where you should only have 25, there needs to be a plan communicated with the health department. We have been advised through Purdue not to ask for exemptions as of right now for meetings, workshops, programs, if at all possible, from our health department. Steve and I are, again, we're in constant communication with the health department, so we keep them updated about what's going on. We share that our safety plan templates, we're working to put together a general template that we're going to give to the health department that really just talks about the fairground setup. So saying that things will be socially distanced. We have those signs that are continually up. Making sure that it's going to be clean before and after groups get there, those kinds of things. But it's not necessarily an exemption we're asking for, because again, we've been advised not to ask for that right now. We really want to stay within those guidelines that are being shared. So based on social distancing numbers, if we're allowed to have, more than 25 people at an event, what you see on the screen is sort of what would be allowed as a maximum number with each of the big rooms. So 150 people in the expo hall would be like the maximum we could have on a normal day, not in the color red county. 100 people north south hall, 25 people in classrooms A, B, and C, and then 20 people in conference rooms 1 and 2. We really, again, should not be over what is allowed by the county color coding system. And make sure we reset the room as soon as we're finished so that the staff can come in and clean for the next event that is there as well. Questions related to safety plans? And the safety plans do get turned into me, so they'll get emailed to me. I think I have me and the general CES inbox in there just in case I happen to overlook it. And then I send those on to our director of extension for approval. And then I will communicate that back to the leaders, volunteers that are doing the meeting that, hey, it's been approved, or hey, we need to adjust this. I have gotten a couple plans that have not been approved. And it really went back to they weren't very descriptive on how they were going to be handling seating or how they were going to be handling like check-in of kids coming into the meeting to prevent the congregating of larger numbers of youth. All right, other questions? All right, so because we are in red right now, there is a good chance that we will have to be having some virtual meetings coming up. But virtual meetings don't have to be like this one is currently, where I am sitting and talking to you and you're just going to sit and listen. We can have some fun interaction. So we do have a page. We've updated our volunteer resource page on our website to have a lot of different resources for you guys. And I'm going to share some with you right now. So, where'd you go? All right, so this is one of our newer ones. Can everybody see, I'm hoping? We've got, so one of the things that we can do is we can utilize our platforms that we are on. So if you're on Zoom, we can actually set up things, especially with the paid account that Purdue has. We can set up poll questions. So for example, I'm going to launch a poll, and you guys should see this on your screen. If you're on your phone, you may need to swipe. But you can go ahead and vote. I've asked, what type of volunteer are you? Awesome, amazing, the best, wonderful. And then asked if you have hosted a virtual meeting before. So you can actually have kids pick and choose answers. Excuse me, it can be single choice, it can be multiple choice. But you guys, I will have you vote on those just for fun. And then I'll show you that we can also launch the results of the polls so kids can see. So this is an option for if you're voting for officers, if you have a motion on the floor, we can make general polls where it just says, I approve motion, I disapprove or don't approve. So there's different ways that a poll could be used. Doing things like making sure your kids' names, I will end this polling. And so I can share the results with you guys. So that should pop up on your screen that you can see. You know, the best was the first choice for a couple of you. And we've got some split on, I don't love the virtual meetings. No, but I've been in them. No, but I want to. Way to go. So congratulations. You just did a fun poll that we can also, again, update for you if you use our paid Purdue account. We're happy to set those up for the leaders, volunteers that would be running those meetings. Using your platform's tools such as annotating. So this can be a little tricky in the fact that sometimes we don't want kids to be too wild, but in Zoom, and I believe in things like Google Hangouts or Google Meets is what it's called, there's also an option for a whiteboard. So if you, I'm gonna pull this up. So we're gonna practice this. So you should be able to see a picture of Hendricks County on the screen, hopefully. You should then, where's my, see, now I'm not gonna, on the bottom of your screen, you should see a button that says annotate. and I'm going to say it's on the bottom, but for you guys, it might actually be on the top, depending on how you're viewing this. It has a little marker. If you are on a phone, again, you can swipe, I believe, to click, and then you would click the annotate button. And what it'll do, if you click that button, it'll actually pop up a border up top, and kids can have stamps, or you can do like markers, or so I've got my little heart marker. You can do something where you pull up a map like this and say, share with us where you live, and kids can go on there and mark where they're from, or, you know, what's your favorite kind of pizza? Maybe you have different pictures of pizza up there and they can put a marker on there. Just making sure that you also know how to stop annotation in case things were to get a little wild. So on mine, I'm going to disable that again. And I want to clear my annotations. Oops. And of course, there we go. Okay. So using the tools that you have is a great way to also engage kids, doing things like polling the audience. So we had the poll with Zoom. There's different options that I share with you on here. You could do some random participation. So something like our wheel of names. You could put kids' names in there. Maybe you have different committees that you know are going to be presenting and you want to switch it up on how they present. You could put the different committees in here, spin it, and it would let you pick which committee or which person is going to be presenting first. So, and then this picks Becky. Does a nice little congratulations. Great way to get, again, just a little different than calling out names or having the committees present in a specific order. There's different apps such as a dice rolling app. Maybe you want to say that you're going to play a game and you want the sixth person on the screen to be the first one to go, or you can pick a dice. You can have as many as you want on this one. Again, these are all resources that are going to be shared afterwards. Depending on how many kids you have, you know, you might need more than one die. Again, just a way to do something a little different, maybe pick kids out a little differently, and obviously encouraging that it's optional. Kids don't necessarily have to turn on their videos, but it's a way to get more engaged than just, okay, and next we're doing this, and next we're doing this. There's lots of different resources that leaders and volunteers also have available, such as bringing in virtual speakers. Right now, our STEM volunteers are looking at how we could maybe get connected with a NASA astronaut, since it ties to our base camp, our STEM challenge, and Mars base camp, and talk about that, trying to figure out how we could maybe do that virtual. There's different places that you could do virtual field trips. If you've never done like even Google Earth, that's something where you or your 4-Hers, you could have them pull up Google Earth, and this is pretty cool. It launches, it's more like 3D versions. There's something on the side over here that it'll say, I'm feeling lucky, and it'll just take you to a random spot on the globe and you can learn more about that spot. And my internet is going to be slow. So let's stop. And Google Earth is being a little slow with my internet, so we'll come back to that. I also mentioned a couple different places, like on the Purdue, the State 4-H website, there is a Creating Productive Virtual 4-H Opportunities, and this has a bunch of different options for you as well. They're working on updating like the junior leader curriculum. State junior leader curriculum also has new Zoom background, so like the junior leaders could have their own background. You saw that I have my custom background with Purdue Extension, Hendricks County on it. Man, Google Earth is just not wanting to do that. We also have the resources of what platforms there are to give you a heads up, just an overview of the different kind of platforms, pros, cons, that sort of stuff. We have virtual meeting etiquette. These are things that you can also share with your 4-Hers. So we have had some clubs that have done virtual meeting etiquette as part of their club meeting to just teach kids kind of the basic do's and don'ts of what you should be doing on virtual meetings, tips on how to maybe do like a job interview when it comes to that. And then I'm going to share. So some of those activities I shared with you already. And again, there's going to be a whole list that we will have available on our website for you to look over and explore and try out. But knowing that there's a good chance we will have to have some virtual meetings coming up in the year, I'm encouraging all of our volunteers to try new things. And I'm happy to help however I can. And I've got lots of resources, lots of connections that I'm happy to share with our volunteers as we go into the 2021 year. So looking ahead to 2021, are there questions, anything before we do that, any questions about the virtual goodies and games and gadgets that we just went over? All right, if not, we will go ahead. So looking ahead to 2021, as our state 4-H program leader would say, if he could have his crystal ball that looks into 2021 and tells us exactly what's going to happen, especially when it comes to the summer, he totally would, and he'd be making millions and millions of dollars. However, we don't have that luxury. So we're still in progress of trying to figure out what 2021 is going to look like. I can tell you for sure, I do know there are some things like statewide programs that are going to be happening virtually. And the nice thing, this was something we learned throughout the past 10 months. We've had 4-Hers who have been able to participate in programs across the state that they haven't had a chance to participate in before because of the drive, because of time commitment, because of whatever reason it was. Now that things went virtual, we've had kids participate in things that were based in St. Joseph County. We've had Fort Wayne area. We've had Evansville area. We've had even into Marion County, just, not wanting or not being able to participate in those typically. So things like our life lesson sessions. This is a high school based program that's going to be starting in January, and it's going to be teaching youth about things like budgeting, banking, online safety, cooking, food preparation, auto care, and a whole bunch of different things that we're hoping will help them learn those life lessons that we as adults sometimes take for granted. That's something that we've launched statewide. They've been able to release updated junior leader curriculum statewide. And so we've got a new brand for the junior leaders. We've got a new logo. We've got all sorts of new resources that we're able to share county to county now. Spark programs, I think, are going to be great in 2021 because those Spark programs are short-term programs designed to spark an interest in a new area. So things like our Clover Gaming Connection, that actually started this week. It's for 7th through 12th graders to learn about the science behind board games. Right now it's fully virtual, but the hope is that in the 2021 year, we might be able to have some hybrid meetings where kids are actually able to get together and play some board games in a safe environment and work on their own board game. So these kids are learning the mechanics of what goes into making and creating a board game. What's the different kinds of strategies? What is it that, if you want to be a board game creator, what does that look like? And then we've got another program starting in January at the county level that we're calling Family Journey. And it's taking a look at sort of family history, a little bit of genealogy, mixing in some cultural interests there. So where did your family come from? What's the heritage? And tying into civic engagement and citizenship. So what does it mean to become a U.S. citizen? And You know, what does our county look like? We've got lots of people from lots of different places coming to Hendricks County. So how do we work together to better Hendricks County as a whole? I see that 2021 is definitely going to bring hybrid meetings. So going back to that virtual and in person, because I think even if we were to go to a totally green county, let's say, and that's, you know, everything is quote back to normal, I don't think that everyone's going to totally jump at the fact that we would be able to meet in person again. I think several people will choose to stay virtual, and that's perfectly fine. But I think that's the importance of those hybrid meetings. So I see things like 4-H in a box happening where we actually were able to do this. We had a mini 4-H connection night last month, and we mailed them the activity so they could follow along. So their own little mini 4-H in a box. This month, we weren't able to mail them the activities because our office got shut down for 2 weeks. So we weren't able to get those out, but we were still able to email them some information and resources. And we're going to be doing that next week to do some activities together, but on a virtual platform. And the last thing that I really see happening in 2021 is I'm hoping to get back to our 5-year plan. And just to give you guys some insight, you know, my expansion review committee has been working hard. We came up with the question last year before 2020 happened of how do we make 4-H a relevant organization that is valued in a constantly changing society? And we came up with 4 kind of categories and objectives that we wanted to reach with the help of our 4-H families and groups. And one was diversity, inclusion, and a welcoming environment. Another was having equipped volunteers. The third, was to increase awareness and develop a value of the 4-H program. And the fourth one was to increase our community partners and outreach. And as we got back into the swing of things this fall, the expansion review committee met, and I asked the question, you know, is this still our question? Is this still where we need to be going? And we talked about it, and we do think that this is still where we need to be headed. It's just taking it and looking at it through a different lens. So going back to how do we make 4-H relevant, and what does that look like after 2020? Because it has thrown us all for a loop. So there is one more thing I want us to do. This is a little interaction. So Minty is one website that allows, it's kind of like a polling website, and I'm going to pull this up. So what I need you to do, and I'm going to shut my video off. I need you to, like in another tab on your phone or on another website on your computer, or if you're on the computer, you want to pull up your phone, go to menti.com, menti.com, and use the code 7805023, and I will type these in the chat box as well. And I want to hear from you, what does 2021 4-H look like for you? And it should pull up. It should pull up on here when you guys type stuff in. So Minty. And this is also a free option. So if this is something you would want to do with your 4-Hers, there's a small, like a free version where you can do a couple slides like this on your own as well. And there's paid versions where you can do some really cool stuff too. So right now, this is the words that you submit would be formed into a word cloud. Where did my people go? And if nobody wants to do it, that's okay too. Where am I? All right, so nobody wants to do it. That's okay. But this is another one. Oh, virtual meetings. There we go. First one. Woo! I see virtual meetings happening as well. And what does 2021 4-H look like? Hopeful, excited, need to over communicate. Great examples. So I'm hoping that, as we go forward, other words that I thought of would be flexibility, um, being ready to adjust as needed, because I think we're going to have to adjust again, and being ready for whatever comes our way, knowing that we've kind of handled virtual things in the past, and I think we can handle them better and with more accuracy, hopefully, in the future. So that is my overview of 2021. I wish, again, I could tell you exactly what's going to happen, but I do know I think some good things are coming, and I think it's going to be an adjustment no matter what it is, but I think it's the perfect time to question, what are things that we've done in the past that maybe we don't need to do once we get back to normal, and what are some things that actually went well this past year that we could use throughout the upcoming year, even if no matter what situation we're in. So I want to take some time for just Q&A, because the last thing I have to share is our resources. And again, this presentation and video will be available after I upload tomorrow, probably. So these resources are on our website. They're available for you to check out at any time, and I'll show that again. But what questions do you have? For me, here's our volunteer page. So we've got last year's Club Leadership Development Series, and then you scroll on down here, and here's a lot of the resources we talked about. So there's our resources. And Google Earth is working for me, so I am going to show you guys that. So here's I'm feeling lucky, and it's going to pull up a random spot. Ooh, a mountain in Germany. So again, I don't know how these would be utilized, but I thought it was a really cool option, and you might even be able to encourage kids to explore someplace new with something like this. So I know like Fair Oaks does virtual tours, I believe, and Purdue has some really cool virtual tours that are available for free as well. Okay. So I will stop sharing. Any questions I can help answer? All right, I did that great of a job. I'm going to stop recording.